Hello, welcome to Soulprint Intuitive Tarot. My name is Cindy for November 16th. So, there's a lot of talk about the transition and how it's going to work and what's going to happen and not happen. So I want to take a bit of a deeper look at that today. So a couple of interesting things. One, apparently Trump has, or the Trump campaign or whoever it is that's trying to sue everybody, has withdrawn a kind of the part of their lawsuit or their legal claims against Pennsylvania, but it was a part of it that sort of anything, it sort of had the most teeth, if you will, even though it was kind of invalid. So they're definitely, there's definitely that pulling back energy, I think, as reality is starting to set in. I also have to question, though, how much of those decisions are being based on money, right? Like literally, how much is this going to cost? Do we really, is it going to serve us to spend that money in that way? Because at the core and at the bottom, that's really the only calculation that factors in with Trump. So that's interesting. And I wish I could give credit where credit is due, but I can't, because I don't remember who said it. But there was somebody who knows Trump fairly well, I guess would be considered an insider or somebody with a lot of knowledge, who apparently said that they think that Trump is going to go to Mar-a-Lago for Christmas and then just simply not return to the White House. And I have to tell you, that sort of felt really, really accurate in this moment in time. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but it definitely feels like the kind of thinking or strategizing that would be going on because, of course, Trump cannot, bear to have to actually be in the White House and hand over that presidency to Biden. And that way, he sort of, he doesn't have to do anything formally in terms of, the transition, right? He's just not going to be available. So I want to take a look at that. COVID research looks like it's doing really well and things are moving along. And, there's a lot of talk about how because of the transition is not going smoothly right now, that could definitely impact or impede the distribution, etc., the rolling out of the vaccine. So let's take a look at what we can take a look at and see what we can see. So, for those of you who are interested, on the Insights channel tomorrow is a channeled reading on COVID and kind of the lessons and the healings that are around that. And on Thursday on the Insights channel, given the fact that it's the U.S. Thanksgiving, I'm going to be actually releasing a video on the connection between gratitude and manifestation. And that's also going to be direct channeled. So let's give this a couple more good shuffles and figure out what we can figure out in terms of what on earth is going on in that White House, why the Republicans are being the Republicans. All right, come on down because I have a question. All right, so Biden, Trump transition, Biden, Trump transition, Biden, Trump transition. My little handy dandy beautiful one over on that side. Okay, so there is a lot more going on kind of behind the scenes than we know or realize. Certainly in terms of the Biden transition even, they are working very diligently, and they have found ways to kind of go around the obstacles. And I know that there was talk about, the transition, the Biden transition is under sort of strict rules to not contact any of the current people in the current administration. But so what they're doing is they're reaching out to people who are no longer in the administration, other experts in the field, that kind of thing. So they really are figuring out a way to get around the ridiculous sort of obstacles that that are being placed in their path. It is really, really important that when that inauguration takes place, that the Biden team is really as ready to go as they possibly can be, and they have every intention of being in that space and place, and they are working, really diligently to make that happen. There is, there is a sense that slowly but slowly, people are starting to come to terms with the loss. People, Trump, the sycophants who will not detach from him. But make no mistake, excuse me, make no mistake. The Republicans at this point are really not going to do anything too overt to push back against Trump's behavior, because they feel, probably rightly so, that they actually require Trump's base to survive their own political careers. So even though a bunch of them just got reelected, some of them are not due yet, there's sort of this awareness or this reality that they really, really can't push back too hard. And so and again, this is the story of the entire Trump presidency, right? Is nobody wanted to push against him, and that just allowed him to do whatever it was he wanted to do and behave however he wanted to behave. And that, as we know, really is the story of Trump's life. So it's not a wonder that even though the burdens of the presidency were very heavy, because let's face it, he was completely ill-equipped to handle it, mentally, emotionally, intellectually, psychologically, you name it. He was not equipped to handle it. And so in many ways, he ignored what was too hard, and he focused on where he felt his strength was, which is just BSing his way through life, right? Just saying stuff to shut people up, saying stuff to get out of the minute. That's what's been going on for the last 5 years. There really doesn't need to be any concern that he's not going to leave the White House. In fact, as I've said before many times, I actually don't see him anywhere near the White House around the time of the inauguration. So, and as I've said before, he does not have the funds, the wherewithal to actually go ahead and create this new media mogul image that he's trying to get to take down Fox. Not going to happen. Nor is he going to be capable of running in 2024. And frankly, none of the Trumps are going to be running for the presidency going forward. So he's right now still in his place of illusions. And, slowly, it's starting to crack underneath him more and more. He sort of makes these slips where he acknowledges that maybe, he didn't exactly win. And again, anybody who's waiting for Trump to concede the election, don't hold your breath. He's not going to do it. And again, it doesn't matter if he doesn't. It just doesn't. Now, so this is interesting. You have both the 9 and the 10 cups coming in like right beside each other sort of thing. And so this talks to sort of the emotional satisfaction that people have derived, and the happiness, and just that feeling of stability starting to creep in as a result of Biden now being president-elect. But they are still going to meet some resistance because there are a lot of people who don't like them. This isn't what they wanted to have happen. They wanted Trump to be in office for at least another 4 more years, and preferably the next 100, because some people just really feel that they need to be dictated to, and that's part of their comfort zone. But be that as it may, there is an awareness that, you've got 60%, let's say, of the country who is very excited and very happy and very pleased and very vocal about it. And you have that other 40% that frankly is not happy about it. I just don't see them gaining a lot of momentum. And I know that there has been talk about, astrologically and the Civil War and the Revolutionary War and similarities and that kind of thing. And I don't discount that for a second, but I energetically am really not picking up any really significant. I mean, I know that there was some friction in Washington between the pro-Trump side and the pro-Biden side, I guess over the weekend. But I'm not picking up anything that really gains momentum and really picks up speed, because it's not there. In many ways, it feels like the fight is sort of dissipating. And again, they kind of take their cues from Trump, right? And Trump has sort of gone quiet, right? He doesn't really have a lot to say. He comes out, he kind of mutters about maybe how he didn't win, but he's not going to concede, as if that somehow is going to cancel the win. So he doesn't have a lot of steam or momentum behind him right now. And so there's going to be these sort of scattered attempts here and there to sort of get people all whipped up, but I just don't see it sort of really coming to fruition in any sort of a significant or strong way. Yeah, that's just it, right? The thing is, okay, so here we go. In the next week or two, right? So taking us, I guess, to the end of November time, maybe very beginning of December, you are going to see more and more indicators that Trump has really just sort of given up. He's just said, I don't want to do this anymore. It's not feeding my ego. I'm not getting a real charge out of it. And so I'm just gonna, I don't know, sit in the White House and watch TV or rant at now Fox News. I don't know what he's going to be doing, but there's definitely a sense of him becoming more and more deflated, more and more of his sort of bravado just dissipating. So he really is, going into the next couple of weeks, going to be in kind of a weakened state. As things continue to ramp up and the Biden-Harris team start taking up more and more oxygen, you're going to really see less and less. I mean, he's got his little tweet storms going, but honestly, I'm not even convinced that some of that is his tweeting. I think that those are the people around him who are sending out those messages on his behalf, just trying to keep him sort of, in a better spot, kind of trying to keep him focused on the fight as opposed to the loss. But there really is a sense around him now that he, it's just like he's withering. The loss weighs heavily on him. The fact that Biden won bothers him even more, because he really does see Biden as very, very tightly connected to Obama. And so what that means in Trump's sort of psyche is that he lost to Obama, his arch enemy, his greatest nemesis, right? In Trump's head, that is actually part of the dialogue that goes on, that he lost to Obama. And that's part of the reason I think that he's having such a difficult time trying to sort of let go, because he got into this whole thing just to prove something to Obama. And in the end, ultimately, the Obama-Biden coalition sort of proved something to him, and it's just not sitting well with him. So look for things to continue to move forward in a kind of quick, methodical, organized fashion. You're going to get individual agencies sort of starting to be a little bit more upfront about, listen, this information needs to be passed on. This is a regular, normal part of the transition. I think that GSA, who has been withholding that final approval or whatever it is she does with the election result, that's also going to sort of unfold in the next, I want to say probably 7 days. It might be a little longer than that, but she's not going to be able to hold off too much longer. And again, she's another one. You know, this is a matter of keeping Trump pacified until he's sort of not so volatile. He's, you know, because this is the thing, right? He's deflated, he's weakened, and his way of handling that, because he can't absolutely handle the fact that he is weakened, is to rant and rage. And so part of what is going on seems to be a little bit of a game almost of, well, let's just keep him calm as the actual truth sinks in. And it's a sad commentary that you had somebody running the country for 4 years who needs to be treated with those kinds of kid gloves, because he is who he is and what he is. But you're going to see things starting to pick up and move forward. And again, the constraints that the Trump administration has tried to put on them is ultimately not going to kind of work. And partly because, you know, you've got a lot of people in the government, except for some of those Trump appointees, but you have a lot of people in the government who know exactly how this is supposed to unfold. And so they quietly behind the scenes are doing what they can to ensure that the information, the documentation, whatever is required by the incoming administration is kind of in place. But as far as sort of rank and file Republicans, senators, and representatives, don't expect a whole lot more from them at this point. They're going to continue the behavior they continue. Yeah. So here's our Fool, right? And, you know, this is actually a pretty good reflection of what's going on right now, right? You've got him defeated, diminished, withdrawn, really struggling. He understands that the war is over. He's just not ready to put down his sword, if you will. There's definitely a sense that around him he is loosening. He is loosening his grip, right? I mean, people are falling away. They're backing away. You know, now apparently there's talk that they're actually threatening to fire anybody who is actually looking for a job. Well, this is the thing, people. They understand that their job is on the line. I mean, in fact, it's over, right? For those people who were a really tight part of the Trump team and the Trump administration, etc., a lot of those people understand that their reputations are so destroyed that they're not going to be able to play any sort of a part in the forthcoming administration. And so, of course, it's time for them to start looking for jobs. You know, ideally, this would have been the time, had the presidency been successful, that they would have been catapulting that into very lucrative positions. That's not happening. So you've got a lot of people who are doing, what they can quietly and behind the scenes. But honestly, it's still very toxic. In that energy, as I step into it, it's really bizarre because there's this feeling of like old and dried up and shriveled up and like no energy. And that appears for some crazy reason to be balanced by anger and rage. So you have to imagine trying to figure out where the middle road of that is and trying to walk down it must be a wee little bit stressful. And the thing is while Trump is busy being quiet like this, he really is trying to figure out how to maximize what he can take, minimize what they're going to find out about him after the fact. He's starting in his own kind of way to really recognize that he actually has a lot fewer options, maybe I guess, than he thought he had, since he thinks that the presidency is all powerful. Bit of a rude awakening for him to realize that actually, no, you know what? Some of those checks and balances will hold. But he's sort of casting a net to see where he can reposition himself, what that looks like, whether that's in the country or out of the country. So there's something going on. I can't quite tap into it, but there's something going on here about him trying to figure out ways to utilize previous partnerships to try to get him into a place where he is a little bit more secure, or he is in a safer position. And it's not coming together for him right now. I'm not saying it won't, but right now he really still very much is in that kind of casting a net and where is it going to take me? Who can protect me? Who can whatever? And it's interesting because what he's finding out is all those leaders who were happy to bow and scrape to him because he was erratic and they couldn't trust that he would have normal political reactions and responses to things, of course, because he didn't. He's starting to realize that all of a sudden those people aren't quite so anxious to take his calls. Those people are not quite so anxious to offer their assistance. And of course, remember, this is Trump. So the second he feels as if he has somehow been betrayed in a friendship, because of course, anybody who smiles at Trump and says one nice thing about him, they're like buddies for life. But as soon as you cross him, that's it, right? And so it's sort of an interesting thing, right? Because it's like he keeps burning the bridges that he may very well need to use to cross. Because as soon as somebody doesn't jump, he starts going after them and attacking them. And again, he is powerless now, right? He's only, he is what he is. He's a lame duck presidency at this point, just frankly, like most presidencies are in the middle of a transition. And so people are not quite as afraid of his retaliation, except, of course, for those like weak-kneed Republicans. I'm not sure. This card sometimes represents Mitch McConnell to me. And I'm not sure what this is about, but there's a lot of scheming and maneuvering going on behind the scenes, I almost want to say. This pertaining to the Georgia runoff, the 2 runoff elections in Georgia. And I think already, they're trying to figure out, the Republicans are trying to figure out how to make this work, how to, put themselves in the best place and best position. Right now, I have to say, energetically, it feels as if the Democrats are going to be able to squeak by, But again, a lot of that boils down to people literally globally starting to focus their intention and their time and their energies on Warnock and Osloff. They need the kind of focused and concentrated energy, intention, and empowerment that was given to the Biden-Harris team, because that is going to be a necessary ingredient and component to getting them up over the fight, over that 50% plus one, or however you guys do that. So there's some stuff going on behind the scenes, but again, the Republicans, especially the Mitch McConnells of the world, for the most part, they are really just separating themselves from Trump as subtly maybe as they can, but their focus now, Mitch McConnell's entire focus is all about making sure that he gets what he wants, and that is the Senate majority. And the world watches, the world waits, as we look, we see one presidency is coming to an end, whether he wants it to or not, and a stronger presidency, one that is more kind of regular politics, more centric, is moving into positions. And so, I guess other allies are more inclined to offer support, whatever it is. But again, there's going to be some degree of, how solid is this? Can we trust? Yeah. Okay, so kind of in wrapping this up, what you have here is a transition that really is going forward, whether Trump wants it to or not. Trump seems to be very, very worried and concerned about things being found out after the fact. And maybe in part that's because, Trump doesn't understand about kind of the immense paper trails that every presidential administration leaves behind. Because his way of dealing with things was just destroy it. And governments aren't set up with that attitude. Governments don't just destroy it. And, I'm talking about documentation, paperwork, files, that kind of stuff. And so there's a lot of anxiety going on there. And part of the anxiety is simply because either he didn't understand it in the last 4 years, which I suspect is true, and now as he's sort of being told, that some stuff just can't get destroyed. There's some anxiety and worry coming from that. Hang on, excuse me a second. Okay. Yeah. So listen. It's really important to continue to pay attention to what goes on. It's really important to start focusing super positive, powerful energy on those 2 runoff races in Georgia. Really, really important. That is where the direction needs to shift. And sort of simply trust that you have somebody with vast amount of experience stepping into the situation. And he's playing with a novice. And so there are ways to get around Trump that Biden knows that Trump hasn't even found the playbook for, okay? So, the media is making a big, big fuss about the transition, and I get it, I do. But part of it is they've got to fill airtime. right? So, and you know, they have to cover something, right? Okay. Thank you for being here. That's sort of it today. As I said, if you're interested about the gratitude and manifestation video that's coming out on Thursday, until next time, take care, be well, and we'll see you really soon. Bye-bye.